Welcome to Definitely Maybe Agile, the podcast where Peter Maddison and David Sharrock discuss the complexities of adopting new ways of working at scale. Hello, Dave. Good to see you again. And we're joined today by Hussein. So, Hussein, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you for having me. So I'm Hussein Hallak, and I'm, I would say, an entrepreneur, a serial entrepreneur. So that means my first venture was not that successful.
But you had a good enough experience that you tried a second and a third after that.
Yeah, exactly. It just sounds more illustrious than it is. And I'm an author as well. I wrote a book called The Dark Art of Life Mastery, and I love to. I see myself also as a mentor for entrepreneurs and people in general. Yeah, I'm a lover of life and politics as well. Recently,
This sounds like this conversation could go anywhere as we just start
absolutely, yeah.
diving into it. Maybe I'm just going to kick off with a quick conversation. So we're both based in the Vancouver area, right? And I've also been fortunate enough to bump into some of the entrepreneurs and the startup community here in Vancouver in particular. But what are you seeing maybe as the sort of biggest difference between entrepreneurs and founders and the challenges they faced a few years ago and the entrepreneurs and founders that you're working with today, those challenges that they're facing today?
I mean, I would say there was pre-COVID and after COVID. And of course, there are a lot of things that happened since COVID, but I think that's probably the biggest, if we call it by its biggest name, the biggest reset, if you wish.
Yeah.
And the reason is before pre-COVID, there was a very healthy community. I don't imagine everywhere, but in Vancouver in particular, there was a growing community. And I mean, entrepreneurs were always there, but there was a growing community of different events. I mean, we were running an event where we brought investors and entrepreneurs together. But then COVID kind of eliminated all of that, at least for 2-3 years. And now there is a move to bring it back, but it's nowhere near where it was. I would say, we would have an event every couple of weeks, like an event that is significant for entrepreneurs, but then all of that's gone. And that took away that sense of community, which is extremely necessary for entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurship, by definition, is, especially if you're a starting entrepreneur, it's very lonely. And bumping into people, learning from them, I would say having those serendipitous conversations that you didn't even prepare for, that sends you down a direction, are extremely helpful for entrepreneurs and extremely needed. And without that, you're on your own, kind of, trying things and learning, let's say, from YouTube videos, but it's never the same of being in the presence of someone. So that is, I would say, the biggest difference between that time and this time. And of course, introducing AI, and nobody knows what the heck is going on, what to build, how to head. Do I vibe code? Do I not vibe code?
Yeah, I think there's so many
relationship with your AI.
Oh yeah, what do I do with my relationship with my AI? Do I tell my girlfriend or don't tell my girlfriend?
Yeah, so it's I mean, I think it's interesting what you say just around the community side. So one of the things that I found is, I mean, this is part of the reason that Peter and I have these regular conversations, is as a founder or an entrepreneur, there are things that you just want to have a conversation about and try and explore and understand what's working, what's not working, and things like this. And if you don't have that community of like-minded individuals who are struggling with the same sort of day in, day out conversations or the challenges, those conversations are hard to come by if you're not able to get into that community or find some group of like-minded, people going through the same stuff, basically.
Yeah. And there is also this structure. Entrepreneurs are not known to have like good structure, not because of anything, like there's nothing wrong with entrepreneurs, but it's the nature of doing something. Sometimes you get into something and you may spend 3, 4, 5 days, trying to solve a problem or engage to something, and nothing breaks you out of that. When you are part of a community, for example, what we used to do in Launch Academy, we would hold morning meetings, sometimes twice a week or sometimes once a week, where you need to report, like, what do you need? So it kind of forces you into a rhythm, which is needed for an entrepreneur. So it kind of, because it gives you a sense of time. I don't know about you, but after COVID, I lost all sense of time, especially when you're working from home, because usually you would wake up, you would prepare, you would go. So there is some sort of things that you have to do in certain timelines. Now you wake up anytime, you eat anytime, you sit at your office at any time, and that kind of moves into each other. And like, how did August finish? How am I in October? I don't know if you feel like that, but that is definitely, for me at least, like a very distinct difference from prior to COVID.
Yeah, you've got to be a lot more self-regulated. I think you've got to, and be able to, especially if you're doing this on your own, you've got to be both very passionate about the thing that you're doing or building or creating, but you've also got to have that self-regulation to actually sort of do things and build things and move forward, so you don't end up spinning your wheels and just going in circles.
Yeah. Sometimes just interfering from outside, like we would be sitting and let's say there's someone that's coming to the community, like when we hosted some people from Silicon Valley or something, that breaks the monotony, and then there is a new idea introduced. Right now you have to go seek something. You're seeking your whatever the algorithm is presenting you, or you're clicking on things, and it's what you want to learn. Yeah. Sometimes the things that come from outside that you didn't know that you didn't know it, or you didn't know that you needed that to push you in a different direction. These are very. It's hard to quantify and to evaluate how valuable they are until they happen. Yeah. Because you don't know which one throws you. Like for example, the reason I got into blockchain was a workshop in Launch Academy. So I was like, I've been hearing about Bitcoin and stuff like that all the time. I was like, and most of the time when you hear about it, I heard about it like it's all about people making money doing that. Not that I don't like money, but it wasn't interesting for me. I'm a geek. I love technology. So it was a workshop that is happening in Launch Academy where someone was talking about blockchain as technology. And I was fascinated. I was so fascinated actually that I went and I started learning. And within like 8 months or something, I was starting my own startup in blockchain. So these are things that you can't prepare for, because I didn't go seeking it. I was forced to attend it because we were organizing it in Launch Academy, and some people just jumped in because they were curious, and it's right there in the space, and suddenly it captures your attention. These are things that you can't prepare for, and you can't like make them happen.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's that whole foundation of innovation. Whether it's acceptation, whether it's just serendipitous interactions, or just your mind is open to a particular information at a certain time, and you can pick that up. Which is very much more difficult from a world where those interactions are virtual, or even the sort of informal social interactions are just not there when you're doing things remotely. Now, how about if you're, one of the things I always look for when working with startups is where they're getting their information from. Effectively, what does their algorithm put in front of them? Who are the people they're listening to? Or who are where is the knowledge, books they're reading, whatever it might be, YouTube videos YouTube channels they're following. Are there any that you kind of come in and say, look, here's the 2 or 3 that any budding entrepreneur needs to be taking a look at?
I think there are 3. I like the number 3, so I would always answer it this way. So there are 3 sources, I would say. So you always have to have what I call the randomization kind of source, where I have like 500 books on Audible, and they're very diverse in topics, from ancient Egypt history to politics to whatever. And what that does, it kind of gives, because it's like sport. Maybe what you want to do is you want, let's say, your pecs. I'm horrible at sport and like bodybuilding, but maybe you want abs. Okay, everybody wants abs, right? But if you just focus on your abs, your body is going to look really weird, because it's not well nourished. So you need to take care of all of it, like all round, let's say. Yeah. So your brain operates the same way, in the sense that if you're completely focused on learning one thing, you're going to be very one-dimensional, and you're not going to have enough nourishment from everything. So I would say always recommend that randomize anyway. And that doesn't mean, watch YouTube videos, like randomize as in like go to ancient ways of learning. And that's one, I would say. The second source, I would say, is people. That would be my second source, which is that source is I would say non-agenda meetings. So meet people in your field or around your field, investors or entrepreneurs. Just keep meeting them, whether you're raising or not. That's the other thing, that it helps different things, because whether you're raising or not, whether you want to work with them or not, you'll get introduced to the community, because that's what's happening. You get to know stuff that are not yet published sometimes. And the third element I would say that you would want to learn is I would call them like the essential books of entrepreneurship. Number one, start with why, because you need to have a certain anchor or belief or passion. Number two, you need lean startup for sure. This is crucial so that you can understand how entrepreneurship works. And with that comes running lean, which is kind of the execution of that. Number three, I don't know how relevant it is today, which is traction. It's still a little bit, but thinking about marketing, and definitely everything that Alex Hormozi is putting out. Alex Hormozi is doing a great job, I would say, in talking about sales in an entrepreneurial way, and how you structure offers and stuff like that. And these are things that entrepreneurs are not good at. Entrepreneurship at the end of the day is sales, and he talks a lot about value. So these are the three, how I would put them. I know I threw like a ton there, but that's a holistic approach. I would.
Perfect.
Yeah, I like Alex Hormozi's stuff too. And actually, as a tip for our listeners, if you take Alex Hormozi puts out tons of YouTube videos, and if you take those and put them into Notebook LM, Notebook LM can then both summarize them and turn them into cue cards, and you can have flashcards which can allow you to learn and things about all the different frameworks and different pieces and build out mind maps. It's a really interesting way to learn about the types of sales techniques and other pieces that he's teaching. So yeah, I do quite enjoy his stuff. So if we take all of those different pieces, I really like that list, by the way. It's a great way of thinking about the different ways in which we need to stretch our minds and think about problems in different ways, introduce ourselves to new thought processes. Because when you start to see things from different angles, you can start to think of different ways of solving problems, which is very, very powerful. I know that some of the entrepreneurs I work with are often run into the problem where they end up pivoting too much. So how do you help the entrepreneurs who find themselves having taken all of those different sources that every time they get into the next conversation and next meeting, they decide, oh, I've got to change direction again now because I've just seen this new great thing that I'm going to go off in that direction?
That's a horrible reason to pivot, though. It's a new direction. At the end of the day, when I work with entrepreneurs, and business is like anything. It's like a lot of moving parts. And it's easy to lose yourself in like all of the different things that you need to do, and then lose sight of what's really important. So I would summarize business in one word and one word only, which is value. And I say the answer. Value is the core. So it's like the hidden thing. You need to know it as an entrepreneur. But how do you verbalize it? I always, if anybody who's one of my students will tell you, any of the entrepreneur students, there's one word I teach them, and I say, this word will make you the smartest person in the room, regardless. And even when I do it, I say this, I put this kind of hypothetical scenario. I say, when you are a successful entrepreneur that you exited from your company, and you're sitting in this board, let's say, meeting, and you're bored out of your mind, and your board meeting, bored out of your mind, and then like you're like half asleep, and somebody asks you, what do you think? And you want to answer and sound smart, and this is the word. It's customers. So if I ask you, what should we do next week? Where should we focus? Customers. What should be our next plan? Customers. Like, customers have all the answers. So the reason to pivot needs to be that there's a change on the side of the customers. Either your customer segment has changed. So basically the customers that you're talking to are no longer the direct customers you want to work with, so they changed, or their needs have changed, or the problem that you were going to solve, you discovered, let's say, a different problem that is deeper, or they're not willing to pay for that problem, they're willing to pay for the solution of that problem, etc., etc. So so a pivot because, you know what, a new technology came out, so I better pivot to AI right now. That's not a pivot, because there is no fundamental change with your customers, and your customers just throwing AI into, let's say, a solution that didn't solve their problem is not going to help in any way. So that's not a pivot. Whereas, so always anchor your decisions into where your customers are. And that's why a lot of AI solutions are completely falling apart. And we're going to, I think, see a massive implosion into the bubble of AI, because there's like, nobody needs it. Okay, great. You can rewrite my article, and that's great. And you sound really smart, but I'm not gonna pay you thousands of dollars for it. No corporation is gonna pay for this. Mm-hmm. So just for a little bit of write-up, yeah, you saved me a few people that I pay, but right now everybody's filling the internet with, let's say, articles. So you need real value that's delivered to the customers, and that should be the reason why you pivot or make any decisions.
I think I just wanted to drill down a little bit on this, because I think this sits really well with a lot of what Peter and I have discussed in previous conversations, which is around product ownership and the need to be continually in touch with customers. And there are two questions that I wanted to throw out, and just either pick one that you want to talk about or try and remember the first and the second one as you go in. So the two questions, one is, as a startup, it's really common that the founder is the person who understands the product and the customer relationship. And there's always some point at which that founder has to let go. And as the team grows, hand that ownership into the team. So I'd love to hear a little bit about what are the sort of things that you look for. At what point should the founder let go of the product that is being built? Let me put it that way, and hand product ownership in or product management into their team. And then the second one is customers and product. Whoever's driving that product, the CEO or the founder at the beginning, and then handing off to a head of product. But what are the sort of top three things that you go, whenever you're being in touch with customers, here's what it means? Because I see so many organizations where they nod to, yes, they recognize they need to be communicating to customers, but then they think that response to a marketing campaign or tracking analytics on their application, incomplete analytics at that, is somehow, but they're not wanting to actually have the conversations with potential customers. Yeah. They're not necessarily even allowed to go and talk to customers for whatever reason in their organization. So what are the sort of, you'd mentioned threes earlier on, what are the three things that you would expect anybody in touch with customers would be doing as a minimum?
Yeah. So it's a great question, or two questions, I would say. So first of all, when the idea of product ownership, I think, needs to shift to problem ownership. Like, which problem are you owning? Because the challenge with owning a product is that you're like, I want to enhance the product, I want to make the product better. No, you want to solve the problems better, because you're always looking at which problem to solve, and you end up being a product that is, like, expanding in features, but let's say there is no real value added to the customers. Like, oh, we did this. So the closer you are, if you look at the most successful organizations, I mean, you see it yourself. You receive an email, it's like, oh, we did this. I'm like, who asked for this? I've been asking for this thing to be solved. Like, that is very important and annoying in your product. Why haven't you solved this? So I think owning the certain problems, like, what do you care about, what our customers are, and what problems do they have, and yes, I think analytics are very important. Like, you see the behavior of the customer on your product. What do they click on? What do they use the most? What do they use the least? This is really, really important. Now, how do you hand over? I would say you hand over by really transferring your vision to the let's say to your team, as in, why did you build it this way? Like, what were the problems? What were the insights that you got from the customer, rather than, here's what we want to build? Mostly entrepreneurs, create a vision, and that's important. Here's where we want to be. We want to be the best whatever product in X. But if you look at, let's say, I love Apple in that sense, not probably today, but let's say what Apple was, which is, even in their vision or mission, it's about creating a user experience. They didn't say we want to be the company that creates the best phones or the best computer technology. We want to create the best user experience. So that means they're closer to the user, and you can see where they started to fail when they kind of abandoned their user, even in their advertising. So their advertising was very meticulous about addressing the user issues. And why they built something that will impact your life and impact your experience. Always Apple was like that. And then when they distance themselves, even if they have all the money, they distance themselves from that. They stop people like, okay, this doesn't offer me anything. Why would I buy? So I think transferring that and talking to your team about why did you build it that way? What were the indications? What did you pick up on? And you transfer that. That will people will start picking up on. In fact, what's their name that does that? There was this company. They're known for customer service. They would put even their investors on customer calls. The shoes company. Oh my God, tip of my tongue. Usually I use it as a
Zappos, no?
Zappos, yes.
Yeah.
They would stay on a call for hours because that's what mattered most. And they would insist that all of their investors, everyone, even the founder, would sit on calls so that they remain in touch with their customers. And I think that's really, really important that you maintain a culture. It needs to be part of your culture that you're here to deliver value to the customer. You are making a promise to your brand is not about the logo or the colors. The brand is a promise to the customer. And the delivery and the power of your product is how it's delivered to the customer and what value. So the more value you deliver, that's why I like Alex Hormozi, because all he talks about is delivering value. Because I think that's what he got right. It's not because of his sales tactics, which are good, but at the end of the day, it's like, if you deliver unbelievable value, people will not want to leave you. It's as simple as that. So I think that is what's missing. And I now forgot the second question.
I hesitate to ask it again because I'm sure Peter has some more questions. But it was the top 3 things of staying in touch with customers.
Oh, yeah. I think you need to kind of put it as I see it sometimes that you reach out to the customer and say, let's meet up. And I think some people ask for, like, I'll give you an Amazon card if you do that. I don't recommend that. I recommend don't reward the customers to doing that. I would say the biggest reward for the customer is willingness to listen. I'm more encouraged, like even I, for the products that I'm most avid, I'm more like, it's an insult for me to give me a $50 Amazon card to give you like of my time, because my time is more valuable. So I would say willingness to listen to me, saying, we noticed, sometimes I love that. It's like, we noticed that you're a heavy user of this. So we'd like to learn from you or ask you because we would want to, like, we want to learn or so. And also asking the customer, how do they want? Because sometimes it's like, it's always a meeting. Well, what would be the best way to let's say to give you that? Would you want to write it, or would you want to record it? Or so asking the customer how they want to interact, because not all customers, they may be heavy users, but they hate to talk in person, depending on what their personality is. And I think the last thing is to stay in touch. Tell them, here's what our plan is, and don't overwhelm them. Here's our roadmap. Not everybody. So here are 3 things we see our customers focused on. If any of those appeal to you, or if you thought we missed something, let us know. You are what matters to us. You are the company. And I think companies that do that, go a long way.
I think touching on the culture you have to build as you hand this over to the organization is I'm making sure that all of those activities are actually occurring, and they're occurring in the right way, and that you're reaching out to customers and you're listening to the customers and you're building that around you. One of the books you mentioned earlier, Traction, has some pieces around there, because one of the important parts there is making sure you bring the right people in, that they match your values, that you've actually got selection criteria. A lot of times when we look at organizations, they have values which it's like motherhood and apple pie. They're things that everybody wants. So they're not really helping you decide whether or not these are the people that I need for my organization, to build my organization, that are going to be able to take my vision and run with it. Do you have any tips or ideas to help entrepreneurs through that process as they're looking at hiring their first person and bringing them in?
I think when it comes to values are somewhat important, but I think values are very personal. Most of the successful companies don't publish their values or don't have that. I think it's principles. I think timeless principles are much better to adhere to. So principles like truth, like dignity, like stuff like that. And I think companies should not focus on that, because I know we're collections of people, but we should be unified based on our interest and our drive to solve certain problems. rather than, well, we share values. Well, why the heck would I care as a customer? Like I don't care what the values of McDonald's is. Well, like I just care if I want the burger and I want it fast. Like deliver on these fundamentals. I think what ends up happening is that we reach a point where companies that have nothing more to offer are like, okay, but we are the same values and we care about this and we care about that. And to a certain extent is important. But I think the foundational element is you are an entity engineered to deliver value in the best way possible. And you need to act according to timeless principles in the sense that treat your people well, don't have corruptions, don't destroy the planet. These are not values. These are things that are fundamental. And I think what ends up happening is that this whole idea, and this is just me in a kind of rant, this whole idea about corporate responsibility and stuff like that, it's like it's slapping lipstick on a pig. You need, as a company, the foundational element, you need to deliver value. You need to deliver it in the best way possible, and you need to deliver it in the way that I want it. That's why I would become a customer. Now, the reason why I would choose you over your competitors is because you align with me the most, but not because you care. Every once in a while you put up a flag or you announce that. That should be foundational. You are part of the community. You should care about everyone. That should be foundational. It shouldn't be something you gloat about. It should be something, because people don't like that, because they know you're lying. They know Amazon, they're already getting their what is it, warehouse employees to pee in bottles. And then they say, we care about people. Like, we know that that's not the case. What we need to do is we need to deliver on the principles and be a principled company in everything you do. And don't bother me with that. Just deliver value and be principled company. That's, I think, what matters. Culture is about internally making sure that your employees find a great community or a great place to work and treated as human beings, treated well. That is the base. It's not something to gloat about, in my opinion.
I found that conversation, that perspective that you've just described really intriguing, because it kind of went from values and principles, just don't waste my time with it, push them out of the door, which I don't know about Peter, but for myself, I work in an environment where values and principles is sort of brought up and raised as something that when you're building culture, build it around values and principles. So my internal dialogue was kind of shocked face, and I'm hoping, as I'm listening to that. But what I found interesting as you go and turn that around is what I'm taking away from what you described, which is maybe me just trying to find some justification for what my initial response was internally, but is that there are basically in sort of core foundations that every organization should bring to the table. You don't need to tell anybody about it. There's, treating people fairly, looking for sustainable solutions, taking care of the planet and the resources that we have around us, and a number of other things about, how transparency and what organization has a principle that says corruption is acceptable, right? All of those things. It's exactly, there's these foundations of just getting on in life with one another and treating one another in our communities with respect and in our corporations with respect. And if that's in place, there's no point having a special section on the website or announcements around it, because you either meet those basic core foundational principles or you're playing games with it.
Yeah, you live them. Don't announce them. Like, basically live them. Don't announce.
Yeah.
Like, act transparently instead of telling one of our values transparent. Like, the good example is Google. Don't do evil, and then they removed it. The problem is big corporations destroyed all of this, right? And it's like, these are the foundational principles of life. Like, you don't go around and say somebody, what's great about me is I'm honest. Like, imagine somebody raised it up in a conversation.
Yeah.
I was like, hang on a second. Why of course, that is the I would say the de facto mode of operations. Otherwise, if you're not honest, why am I here? So it's like why you're raising this, as opposed to just act like it, and show me your track record, and make a promise. Like, for example, that we will always, tell you when there's a change, for example. We will, like, instead of telling me you're transparent and you're changing your privacy and like terms and conditions without telling me and taking my work. Like, that's, I think what ended up happening is, I definitely believe that these are crucial and important. But what ended up happening in the past, I would say 10, 15 years, almost every corporation destroyed what that means. Because nobody ever believes anyone when they say, you know what, it's like, so why bother? Just do it and live by it. Because what's end up happening is that when people discover it, people are going to flock away from you, and they always discover. So I think live by it. Now, inside the company, it's about behavior. Imagine also another way, like you're sitting in a meeting. It's like, let's share our, talk about our values, as opposed to what's important to you, like what's missing. I would rather, instead of a meeting that says, here's our values and here's where we're going, to sit with the employees and immediately do what we do with customers. What matters to you guys? What is missing? And then we address that. And then the next meeting, we look at what else is missing. How can we continuously make this place the best place to work? And what that means, it shouldn't come from the founder. Like, if I'm a founder and I bring you along and I say, hey, here's what's the most important to me is honesty, and we're going to have an honest organization, let's say. And people are like, but that's not what I want. I want, like, to be well paid. Who gives a shit about, an honest, let's say, I'm saying, and you don't pay me enough, for example, or you make me work extra hours, and let's say you cut yourself some slack, or you pay yourself far more. So these are the kind of things. Whereas what we do is we have an honest conversation, and we say, what is it that's important for you guys? So if we treat the team, I would say, instead of just the word employees, the team, as an extended kind of group that we're collectively working to build this together. And how do we want to do it? So just like we treat our customers. And I think that's far more honest approach, far more realistic, because immediately the team will feel included. And they will feel that, when we find an issue, because we always do, it's no longer we're pointing at a problem with what the founder gave us. We're pointing at a problem that we're all watching, and we know that we can come together and solve it as a group. So I would rather more of a more realistic, pragmatic culture, because at the end of the day, if, let's say, the business is not doing well, you're going to have to let go some people. So if you say, we're a family and whatever, and you let people go, you're immediately in breach of that. Yeah. Whereas if you say, listen, guys, we're a business. I love one of the CEOs I worked with. He was brutally honest. We once, let's say, didn't have enough money, and we might not close a contract. And that meant everybody would have to be let go. And he didn't wait till after Christmas to tell people. He told them immediately when he said. Now, it was harsh, but you could always appreciate that we didn't have transparency or honesty as a value, but he was always honest, transparent. You knew what to expect. So you could prepare. And I took that and it's like, wow, that's so. So right now, wherever I'm working with anyone, subcontractors, I say, hey guys, next month we may not have. So I'm telling you ahead so that you can prepare. Now I'll confirm, but I'm telling you ahead so that you can prepare yourself. That is, I think, more a pragmatic approach and a more, I would say, empathetic and compassionate with people, that you don't kind of lie to them and try to hide just be honest. People are capable of dealing with things, and people will raise and they will say what they have problem. And then you work together with openness with them.
I was going to say, over to you, Peter. You're gonna...
okay. So the way to
there's a lot of information coming in. There's some great ideas there. So
there is, and I would almost summarize it as, and this is something that I know that, and Dave will have run through these, especially with teams, but having that conversation around what does each of us want out of this? What are you looking to get from it? What do you value from this? And how are we going to work together? That is a key part of forming teams and bringing people together. The conceptual ideas, as you're describing that, is saying very much around, you got to walk the walk, and not just talk the talk, and not just put stuff up on a board somewhere or create a cat poster. But these are our values, but then nobody actually does any of those things. Nobody is penalized if they don't either. Like if they go and do, and they clearly exhibit behaviors that are not in line with any of these things, there's no penalty for doing that. There's no conversation around it. It just happens, and it gets swept under the rug. So think those are some very key points. And I think we see that very much, especially as organizations grow, as it becomes harder to keep that alignment and keep that culture. So I think we're getting around about to time now. So, I mean, at this point in the conversation, it's been a great conversation. We covered lots of different topics, is where I would ask for each of us to bring forward, like, what's our favorite point that we would like our audience to take away with us. So it's your 3 points, Zane. So we each get one.
Sure. You want me to start, or sorry?
Yeah, I can pass it to you. Let's go.
Sure. I think it's about one of the favorite things that I've heard recently is Seth Godin talking about strategy. And strategy, he said, it's becoming. And I really love that. It's like who you're becoming. So, and I love that. I use it always in choice, is that you choose who you want to become, and then your thoughts, words, and actions flow from there. So I think the kind of company you want to become, the kind of startup, the kind of entrepreneur you want to become, you choose that, and then everything flows from there. And it shouldn't be something like, you can't choose to become the successful exited, $1 billion. It's not measured in that. It's measured in experience, the kind of experience you want to have. So I think that is something I'm now kind of grounded in, and I'm working with other founders to help them. Is like, who do you choose to become? And what does that mean for your thoughts, words, and actions that flow from there? And it's an interesting approach. So that's something I would want to end on.
Dave?
There are so many little touch points as we've gone through, some interesting things for us to take away and think about. I wanted to draw something back to that sort of product customer piece that we talk about. And you mentioned around, when should the founder hand off to their team the product and taking care of the product and the customer? And I thought you mentioned something really powerful, which is, you're not handing off the product, you're handing off the why. It's the why you came up with the product in the first place, why the customers are working with your organization, and so on. That why, instead of the what you're handing over. You're not handing over a complete service or product that needs maintaining and developing, but the why. And I feel that just really acted as a foundation to pull things, like, there's a really good moment when you're ready to be able to hand something off and knowing what you're handing off. I thought that was just a great takeaway. Now, I dare Peter to try and bring the principles and values conversation to close, or are you going to find something else here?
I was going to pick something else, but
good, okay.
I mean, there's a lot in the principles and values conversation.
There is,
and I think there's some pieces there around where we agree that it's values, principles are not designed just to live on a wall somewhere. We've talked about that a lot. Yeah. You have to live them as part of the organization. The concepts around, how do we know that we have the right people? And you can potentially see it by observing, what values am I looking for, and am I seeing those values in the people that work for me? So it can be a gauge from that perspective, at least saying, are these people I want to work with? Am I getting the learning and experience from the people I have around me? Is this the culture that I'm looking to build? So there's some interesting pieces there, I think. But it's been a great conversation. I really appreciate both of you joining us for this, and I look forward to next time. And with that, I'll say thank you, and until next time.
Till next time. Again, Hussein, thank you very much for joining us. Peter, always a pleasure.
You've been listening to Definitely Maybe Agile, the podcast where your hosts, Peter Maddison and David Sharrock, focus on the art and science of digital, agile, and DevOps at scale.